Thank you. Sorry for the delay.
No problem.
So it will be a sort of survey. At the end, I will explain a bit more in detail what we are currently doing. And the survey covers work with Venkat and Antram in UC Berkeley and Eliza, who is now in Caltech. Okay, so I will discuss first spherical Boolean models in the Shannon regime, then the Poisson-Voronoi tessellation with displacements in the Shannon regime, which is really the core motivation. And finally, if time allows, Poisson hyperplane tessellations with motivations in data science. And this is the joint work with Eliza. Okay, so I'll go fast in notation because we had lots of very thorough introductions. Mu will represent a stationary point process with density lambda. P naught, the Palm probability of mu. The points will be denoted by Tk. I will, when I discuss the spherical Boolean model, introduce a radii, AK, one radius per point, which are IID, are plus valued, independent of mu. And I look at this union of balls centered at the point TKs with radii AK, right? And this is the famous Boolean model. If the radii, if the radius, which are ID of say 0, has nth moment in dimension n, we look at point process in dimension n, and if mu of a stationary point process of intensity lambda, then this union is a stationary random closed set. So classical results. One can define a notion of degree and the notion of percolation. The degree will be in terms of the number of points of mu other than 0 whose ball or whose balls intersect the ball of the point at 0 under P naught. Okay, and so conditionally on the fact that A0 is R, D will be a Poisson random variable with a mean. Which is given by the formulas that you see at the bottom. Okay, these are very classical things. There is a notion of percolation, which is classical also, of continuum percolation. The cluster of the origin, denoted by calligraphic K, is a maximal connected component of this Xi, this random closed sets, which I defined, containing the ball at the origin under P naught. And the percolation probability is simply the chance under P naught that the Lebesgue volume of this connected component be infinite. Under this assumption of radii of this moment condition under radii, volume being infinite will be equivalent to the number of elements of balls that contain to this component being infinite. One proves it's a very classical result in every dimension that there is a lambda critical such that theta is equal to 0 if lambda, the intensity, is less than lambda critical and positive otherwise. There is a typo, lambda, lambda more than lambda critical. Okay. Okay, and last concept is volume fraction, which is also very classical. You take any set C, and measurable Borel set with Lebesgue measure is positive and finite, and you look at the ratio F, which is the expectation of the volume of Xi inter C divided by the volume of C. This quantity has not dependent on the choice of C, and one calls volume fraction the quantity F, which is the chance that 0 belongs to Xi, and it can be computed in terms of this exponential formula, which is also very classical. Okay, now what is the Shannon regime? It's a regime where n tends to infinity under an intensity assumption, which is that the intensities of the Poisson point processes are exponential of the form e to the n rho. Rho can be positive or negative, is called the normalized logarithmic intensity. And the radii assumption is the one that we saw in lectures at the beginning of the week, where the radius in a dimension n is of the type xn times square root of n. So objects will always be a size square root of n. And the assumption that we take here is that the element that we find to define the radius ak is of the form square root of n times something, where this something satisfies an LDP. Okay, and so more precisely, if I look at the mean of this xn, they're all, since the ak are IID, the xk are IID, just a rescaling by 1 over square root of n. I will call Rn star the mean, and the assumption will be that R star, which is the limit of the expectations, exists, and that the xn satisfy a LDP with a good convex rate function I. Okay, so there were also excellent lectures on the large deviation, so I don't insist on the Gertner-Ellis condition or on the LDP and the notion of a good rate function. Okay, so all my objects will be indexed by dimension, and think of it, it requires a little bit of use to having things indexed by n by dimension and to let n go to infinity. And so it applies to the palm, to the intensity, to the points of the point process, to the radii, and later on to the Voronoi cells and things like that. And also to the degree, to the chance of percolation, to the volume fraction. Okay, there are lots of interesting special cases. One of them is the case where the radii are deterministic, where there are no fluctuations. And therefore, the only assumptions there is that the radii in question converge with dimension to a limit as n goes to infinity. Okay, so I will come to the information theoretic motivation a bit later, but let me explain the Gaussian case to justify what we do in terms of looking at this regime, particularly in terms of the scaling. So if we take W IID random variables in n, I, and k, centered with variance sigma square, and can build vectors which are IID, and the case vector in dimension n is made of n random variables which are IID along this, following this law. And if you think of what happens to the vector has exactly the scaling that we said. Namely, it has the representation W is square root of n times something, where this something is indeed a vector which, by a strong law of large number, has the properties that we want in terms of mean, but satisfies an LDP with a good rate function whose value at R is given below. Okay, okay, so that's the classical thing, and we will use it a bit later. Okay, so what are the results that we got on the topic? I will explain them in a bit more detail. There is this constant, tau d, for degree, tau p for percolation, tau v, which are ordered, not always strictly. You see that tau d can be equal to tau p. I will explain why. Which are such that when the parameter rho varies, right, you get the interesting following phase diagram. If rho is less than tau d, I will give the value of tau d in function of the statistics of the noise a bit later, of the radii if you want. Then the expectation of the degree tends to 0 as dimension goes to infinity. And above this tau d, it tends to infinity. Then you increase the intensity, you move up to tau p, and you look at the chance of percolation. This is the second line, the theta n line. So theta n, when n goes to infinity, up to tau p goes to 0. And then after tau p, it is strictly positive. And finally, you move up to tau v, which can be strictly bigger, and is strictly bigger, generally speaking. And the volume fraction will be 0 throughout up to tau v, and will be 1 from tau v to infinity. Okay, that's the picture. And so the mental picture is that as you increase in this Shannon regime the intensity of the underlying Poisson point process, you move from some sort of solipsisms where you see nobody around, okay, to suddenly percolation when you increase up to tau p. Percolation means that, I mean, percolation in all dimension, if you want, happening with a positive probability, and say something what happens at infinity, but still with volume fraction 0. And finally, when you're about tau v, the whole space is covered. Okay, so this is the mental picture. And this is a series of results that we got with Venkat. So this is the expression in function of the rate function I of the radii of the degree threshold. So you see it's an explicit thing. So I have to solve an optimization problem. And it involves the function I at R over 2, because actually, as you guess, I mean, there are things that involve the sum of two random variables of type X. If rho is less than tau d, then the degree goes to 0. If rho is more than tau d, the degree goes to the infinity as dimension goes to infinity. And one knows what are called error exponents, which are very easy here, namely how fast in exponential scale this mean degree goes to 0 or to infinity, depending on the discrepancy between rho and tau d. Okay, the proof, I will give no proofs, only results, unless, I mean, I have time at the end. But these are stochastic geometry representations plus essentially Varadhan's lemma. Things specialize when radii are deterministic. The deterministic degree threshold is simply minus 1/2 of log of 2 pi e minus log of 2 r star. R star is the constant in question. And one always have that tau d is less than tau d deterministic. And for the Gaussian case, you have a closed form, which is given in the bottom formula. So let me skip the proof. The percolation threshold is also known explicitly. It's a bit more difficult. There is a notion of typicality and a branching argument. And the percolation threshold involves an optimization problem of the type that you have to find the infimum over r more than an r star, the mean in the limit of the rate function at r minus the log of r plus r star. And as I said already, I explained that if rho is less than tau p, theta n goes to 0. Whereas if rho is more than tau p, then you can prove that the limit of theta n is positive as n goes to infinity. And one doesn't know the fluctuations around these limits in this case, for especially the 0 limit, right? So there are closed forms for deterministic radii. You can solve these things explicitly. This is the expression for the deterministic case of the percolation threshold. And you can show the percolation and degree threshold coincide in the deterministic case and only in the deterministic case. And that the Gaussian case has also a semi-explicit expression in terms of a constant, which is solution of a polynomial equation of degree 3. Okay. Final one, which now has again error exponents. It is the volume fraction threshold, so it is the biggest, and it involves yet another optimization problem in terms of the rate function of the noise or the radii. One knows that when rho is less than this threshold of the volume fraction threshold, volume fraction goes to 0, and one knows at which speed in the exponential scale. Whereas if rho is more than tau v, then fn goes to 1, and one knows again at what speed 1 minus fn goes to 0 in an exponential scale. And the proof is, again, a mix of stochastic geometry representation of this volume fraction in terms of the exponential formulas and the use of Varadhan's lemma to conclude. Okay, that's the picture. There are closed form for special cases, but let me move to the second topic, which is the Poisson-Voronoi tessellation in the Shannon regime and the so-called Shannon-Poltirev threshold and error exponents. Okay, so the picture now is different. Let me motivate it by first the Gaussian case, which I introduced a bit earlier. You get this Poisson point process mu n of intensity e to the e to the n rho. Okay, and you design the Voronoi cells of this tessellation, the V script nk. Okay, and you take for each point of the point process a displacement of this point according to a Gaussian vector, which is a white Gaussian vector with IID coordinates which are centered with this variance sigma square, right? That's the picture. Then it gives, it transforms each point Tnk into a displaced point, which I call Znk, just by addition. This is the additive noise problem in Shannon theory. And you let n go to infinity in Shannon theory. This is where the phase transition that Shannon discovered take place. And this received the interpretation of infinite block length in information theory. Okay, and in the Gaussian case, you use maximum likelihood. So if you receive a Z at the end of the channel, you pretend that the closest code word is received, was emitted, right? And because this is the most likely one, because in the Gaussian case, likelihood is Euclidean distance. So that's why Voronoi shows up, right? So it's what is written in the middle here, typical maximum likelihood decoding error, and can be defined in our framework as follows. Under P0n, a point sampled uniformly at random on the sphere Sn-1 of center 0, you're under Palm, and with radius Euclidean norm of the noise displacement at point 0 does not belong to the Voronoi cell of 0. This is the case where you have an error. So of course, in small dimension, because of the support of the Gaussian, you will have errors here and there. But in the limit, there is the Shannon phase transition. And you can compute the evolution of that as n approaches to infinity by computing in our framework Pn, which is the chance that Z0n, the displaced vector of the point at the origin, doesn't belong to the Voronoi cell of the origin, right? And this is also the chance that this Gaussian thing doesn't depend to the Voronoi cell. Okay. The first theorem that we get is our representation theorem for the additive white Gaussian noise case. The random coding Poltiref, I will explain why we call it Poltiref, maximum likelihood success probability is given. Maximum likelihood success probability is given by the formula. Qn is the integral of the, you see kappa n, which is the volume of the ball of radius 1 in dimension n. Lambda n is e to the n rho, the density of the Poisson point process, and this gn sigma function is linked to the norm of the rescale norm of this Gaussian vector in dimension n. Okay, so this is a representation. It comes from Palm calculus. It's a few pages of proof. I will perhaps give them at the end if you want. But let me skip that. It's linked to the empty ball representation of Voronoi. So it's plus Livniak theorem. So it's an easy stochastic geometry proof, but which has not been seen as useful in information theory, I believe, so far. So we could retrieve out of that results that Poltiref got in '94. Poltiref was the first to study the Shannon regime for lattices in high dimension. And he proved that the Shannon equivalent threshold tau Shannon was actually this is the entropy of the Gaussian of centered Gaussian of variance sigma square. And he also proved using different tools that if rho is more than tau s, then the probability of error tends to 1, and if rho is less than tau s, then it goes to 0. And he could compute, and we have this. I will explain in more general form a bit later. In explicit terms, when you are, say, log alpha below the threshold given by the Shannon capacity, you get the exponents which are given at the bottom of the page here, right? Okay, so let me now move to the picture of this Gaussian case. A picture is can be added to the table that we had below. What you see on top of the three thresholds, tau d Gaussian, tau p Gaussian, tau v Gaussian, the new tau Shannon Gaussian. And this Shannon Gaussian threshold is above strictly the volume fraction. And so it's an interesting thing. And you can actually prove that when you think about it, I mean, you have seen this displacement, you choose a direction. Up to now, we were comparing balls, right? Now you choose a direction with the same radius because the coordinates are Gaussian as those you would have when taking displacements which are Gaussian, but you choose only one direction. It's like a needle pointing in a direction, and you want to check whether this needle is included in the Voronoi cell, right? And you can go beyond the volume fraction threshold and still be able to decode. This is the formula that we get from our comparison with the Boolean case. Okay, so I can now go to the main result, which is beyond Gaussian case. So beyond what Paul Tireff did in '94, using the stochastic geometry representation. So the key thing here is to define a new type of noise, which has the properties that we want to use large deviation theory. And so it goes like this. Your noise is a section, n-dimensional section of a stationary process with coordinate W1 up to Wn, Wn plus 1. So you have this stationary process. And you take the n section and you use this noise for every point independently of the Poisson point process. And you assume that this guy, the vector Wn in dimension n, has for all n a differential entropy, and that there is a differential entropy rate that I will call h of w, small h of w. And so it was not defined in the classes directly, but the differential entropy rate is just the rescale limit of the differential entropy as you let dimension or the size of the vector go to infinity, right? And it can be redefined in terms of the so-called entropy spectrum of the noise Wn, which is the distribution of the differential entropy of the vector, right? Xi n. Okay, so this is the setting, and what I will make a bit precise later are the assumptions, but let me first define the setting. So I call now a decoding partition, which would be the analog of the Voronoi in the Gaussian case, any jointly stationary partition associated with the points of the point process. And the associated decoding strategy, the one that pretends that I've received a displaced vector in C and L, then I pretend that the code word or the point of the point process which was transmitted is T and L, right? So exactly like in the Gaussian case. Okay, and now here is the first result, which extends the Paul Tireff result in for any noise. If I call tau s minus the differential entropy of the noise, then the theorem says that if rho, the density of the point process, is more than tau s, then for all decoding partitions, the probability of error goes to 1. Whereas if rho is less than tau s, there exists a decoding partition such that Pn goes to 0. Okay, so this is the Shannon threshold. And the key result is on it relies on what we call likelihood cells, and these likelihood cells are in terms of looking at the subsets of Rn. So that would be the likelihood cell around 0, which is the set of loci yn of the Euclidean space in dimension n. So you define first the likelihood function, which is simply 1 over n log of fn of yn. So this is, in a sense, the likelihood of seeing rescaled by n the point yn, and you define likelihood cells in terms of a mix of the Voronoi cell when there is ambiguity and a situation which again compares the likelihood of point tk and the likelihood of the other points, right? That was Euclidean distance earlier. Now it's just likelihood. So they form a translation invariant decoding partition, and we use that to define the likelihood error probability, maximum likelihood error probability, in terms of pretending that the code word TL was transmitted if the message or the Z belongs to this likelihood cell of type index L. Okay, and we can compute lots of results on Pn, which is the probability of error, which is the chance that the vector of displacement does not belong to this likelihood cell. And here I give the general result when there is ambiguity, but when there is no ambiguity, namely when the region of ambiguous likelihood has a volume which is 0 in dimension n for all n, then this is an equality. And now comes the main result. If you assume that the entropy spectrum psi n satisfies the LDP with a good rate function I of x, then under this LDP assumption on the noise, if I take rho, the density of the point process, Poisson point process, of the form as we did as Paul Tireff did, tau of s minus log of alpha for an alpha positive, then the error exponent around the this Shannon threshold has an explicit form in terms of the following optimization problem. You have to solve the infimum over R of L of R plus I of R. I is the good rate function of the entropy spectrum. And the L function is also obtained through the I function, through the formula that you see at the bottom. So you take the positive part of log alpha plus the entropy rate of the displacement H of W minus J of R, where J of R solves again an optimization problem in terms of I, which is the supremum of S less than or equal to R of S minus IRS. Okay, so this is the general result that we got. And let me insist, I will not give the proof, but let me insist on one thing, which perhaps will ring a bell to some of the lectures which were given on exponent of volumes of certain sets during the first part of the conference. If I look at, let me try to I use my pen. If I look at VNR, which is the volume of the subset of the Euclidean space in dimension n, such that the likelihood is less than R. And so this plays a key role actually in the proof and the use of large deviation, because what we can prove is that 1 minus Pn has a representation in terms of this volume with integrated with respect to the entropy spectrum, right? And so it's why we, because of these formulas, that we can use Varadhan's lemma and prove the result. And intrinsically, for stochastic geometer, there is, I think, a very interesting, at least to us, result that this volume, the volume of this set, of this likelihood set, right? The volume of the set of y's whose likelihood is less than r has an exponential growth as dimension goes to infinity under this LDP assumption, which is the one. So of course, I mean, you have to be careful. There are upper bounds and lower bounds, but typically it grows like the function that shows up, the J function that shows up, the soup of S less than R of S minus I of S, right? Okay, so this is the, and so when you think about it, so it means, I mean, there are lots of objects that for which we have absolutely no understanding of the geometry, okay, in coming from random vectors. But if you measure their volume in terms of likelihood, when these objects are defined in terms of random processes, which have an entropy spectrum and blah, then you can have quite good estimates of the volume of these objects, right? Of the level sets of this likelihood functions. Okay, so I'm not sure. Do I still have time or not? How much more time do I have?
In 5 minutes, the next talk starts.
Okay, so I should perhaps just say a few words on. Let me just say just a few words on the what we did with ELIZA. So this is also, let me just look at this picture to explain, right? The setting features, again, dimension goes to infinity. And this is about data compression. The theory that I described was about channel coding. So it's channel, it's data compression. So you take hyperplanes, isotropic hyperplanes in dimension n, and you tessellate using these hyperplanes the space. You establish a connection between the density of the hyperplanes and the density of the cells, and you're interested in what is called one-bit compression, namely for each point of data, you look at one bit which says, oh, it's on this side of this hyperplane, it's on this side of that hyperplane, it's on this side of that hyperplane, and so forth, right? So you get bits which tell you how to locate the data. And we use this stationary isotropic theory, which was used a bit earlier for channel coding, in order to look at the distortion obtained by this coding, this type of one-bit compression. And we have lots of results on that I have no time to describe. One of them, for instance, let me skip the, we have tables with the same type of results, but would be a notion of taking the typical data. Then you have the zero cell, which is given here, right? And you look at the furthest point from the typical data, the origin, which is encoded in the same way as the origin. And you want to control that. And we used actually, I'm sorry, the time that went spent too much time, the very nice theory which was developed and described in the talks of Professor Kablushko to get, I mean, phase transitions and about this type of distortion. And there are lots of other metrics, but I have no time to describe them. Okay, so let me stop here. And I'm sorry to have taken a bit more time than what I should.